think you learned anything?
1 2 1 2
Welcome back, hardcore and casual gamers. I am Fox at Foxy Games UK, your regular aggregate source of the latest game news, rumour and video game discussion, with an emphasis on PlayStation but spanning a variety of platforms. Remember, views expressed in our videos are those of third parties and do not necessarily represent the views of Foxy Games UK. Keep up to date with all the latest game news, rumour and shenanigans just by following me via Twitter at FoxyGames_UK, and all relevant links can be found in this video's description. Okay, so no time to waste today. Let's get into our first news story, courtesy of Gaming Bolt. Now, this is something that we discussed at length during yesterday's The Gamer Couch Reloaded podcast, and really it is ironic that I came across this news article today. So the title of the article is Xbox One X is an 8.5 generation console and PS4 Pro is a marketing gimmick, at least according to industry analyst group, the IDC. So the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X are conceptually very similar systems. Functionality too, they are equal, because even though the Xbox One X hardware is far more powerful than the PS4 Pro's hardware, the simple fact of the matter is that both Microsoft and Sony have mandated that these new consoles need to be tethered to their base SKUs, the PS4 and Xbox One respectively. In other words, developers can't make Pro or Xbox One X exclusive games. At best, they can embellish existing games on the new platforms. So what this means then is that even while the Xbox One X's hard specs and performance are far better than the PS4 Pro's, I don't think there is that much of a difference to the end consumer. However, it seems like Lewis Ward at IDC, really research director, gaming and VR AR, what a title, he does not. In an exclusive interview with Gaming Bolt, Ward drew a difference between the Pro and the One X, noting that while Sony will implement and introduce a proper PS5 in a few years, Microsoft will want to ride out the One X for a while. Here's a quote. Pro is mostly a marketing gimmick, he said, when asked about the question of a PS5 rather than further iterative upgrades from Sony. He went on to say, it is nothing like Xbox One X in terms of the performance lift. It's basically a standard console refresh, but Sony tweaked a few internals and got a 10% performance boost for the Pro. Big whoop. Xbox One X is a much more fundamental redesign, and it's at least 40% more potent than the PS4 or the initial Xbox One SKUs. Xbox One X will be able to do VR and AR, although Microsoft will wait to turn that feature on until there's some great software for it, and that will largely be about Win 10 PC app development. Xbox One X will eventually run content pre-existing Xbox Ones don't, and I kind of don't blame Microsoft for holding on to the shoe for a while, at least late 2018 and perhaps 2019. Xbox One X is a 8.5 gen console and PS4 Pro just isn't. So, in as much as Ward is saying that Sony will have a proper PS5 sooner than Microsoft has a proper Xbox One successor, in that I can agree, but I can't say I agree with his takeaway regarding the two machines at all. Not only do I feel that he is underselling the Pro a fair bit here, but the functional lack of a difference between the two machines as a result of both of them being unable to get exclusives is also something that cannot be undermined. It's also unclear for now how successful the Xbox One X will be for Microsoft in the long run, and if it isn't, I can very well see Microsoft simply choosing to push out a new next generation Xbox rather than riding it out, as seen with rumours that Microsoft are already prepping a successor to the One X. So that's not where IDC chose to stop their angle though. They went on to say that Xbox One is struggling with a lack of new IPs, single player games, because they are a riskier bet. Here's what he had to say. Microsoft had the worst luck as far as their first party initiatives go this generation. Multiple of their anticipated games in development have had troubles and met with cancellations, such as Scalebound and Fable Legends, the list goes on, and their major first party franchises are beginning to feel tired and losing their selling power in the market, such as with Halo or Gears, and their new efforts have all failed to stick, such as really Quantum Break and Sunset Overdrive. Why has Microsoft had such bad luck with their exclusive lineup? So Gaming Bolt decided to ask Lewis Ward, IDC's research director, and why they have failed to match Nintendo and Sony in this regard. Here's what he had to say. Microsoft doesn't have a big game development studio or development team in-house as Sony or Nintendo do, and they have a deep history of producing third-party entertainment products and services themselves. They have a few massive franchises like Halo and Gears of War and Minecraft and so on, but Microsoft's strategy for a long time has been to seek out indie studios and partner with big third-party studios in order to obtain exclusive content. Microsoft has been more aggressive than Sony or Nintendo in terms of identifying external fits for the Xbox community that come from a PC or mobile background, and making these games work on TV sets and potentially buying the associated studio and IP if the terms make sense. You mentioned Rise earlier, and that of course was developed by Crytek. Microsoft got World of Tanks on Xbox years before Sony, and this holiday season their big move was to tie up Bluehole's PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, or PUBG. Since Microsoft has a smaller internal development team, they have really had to get more creative and get around the exclusive content, and I suspect this trend will continue, and really it's largely paid off for them. I'm not necessarily sure I would argue that Microsoft first-party efforts have paid off for them, certainly on the Xbox and Xbox 360, but definitely not so on the Xbox One. I also agree that Microsoft's first-party hasn't been as strong as Nintendo or Sony's, but after 19 years on the market, whose fault is that? This has of course led to problems like last year where Sony and Nintendo dominated conversation with epic first titles such as Horizon Zero Dawn and Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Microsoft had nothing to show for themselves and got edged out from the conversation. Isn't this a problem the company should look at addressing? Here's what they said. These games take a long time to make and are very expensive, Ward said. As you pointed out, Microsoft tried their hand at some AAA games with strong narratives earlier this generation and kind of crapped out. Perhaps the cancelled Fable game would have stretched that itch, or perhaps the new Crackdown will be a monster. It certainly looked good at E3. At the end of the day, I can't or don't blame Microsoft for focusing on partnerships that involve multiplayer like PUBG. That's where the esports wave is going, and that's where the monetization tail can last for years and years. Single player games are great, but their star is fading broadly simply because they're a riskier bet. If they flop out the gate, it can destroy a studio. That's an interesting point of view, but this is an argument we have often heard. But on the other hand, we have also seen a multitude of great first-party games actually work and be successful over this last year. And at this point, the problem is in Microsoft failing to identify the proper strategic initiatives and failing to budget properly. In the end, I do hope Microsoft gets back to producing exciting first-party content, multiplayer and stylish games of sure, and also single-player stuff really needs to be at the forefront this year. And have some variety in your lineup. Microsoft, variety is what sells consoles. And that's where the article ends. Look, here's the thing. We discussed this at length on the Gamer Couch Reloaded yesterday, and one of the things that I actually mentioned is Microsoft's problem is they have all this power in the One X. No doubt it is more powerful than the Pro, and what can they do with this power? Well, only tart up existing, Xbox One games. They're not allowed, these developers, really at a mandate level, to produce exclusive content for the One X. And I did say within that podcast yesterday, you can check it out on the channel, I did say that if Microsoft only launched the Xbox One X as a new generation, I'm sure, actually more than sure, in fact I'm absolutely certain that there would be a whole lot more excitement around this machine. I mean, 40% more powerful than the Pro. I mean, if you're going to waste all of this, hardware budget just by really giving games the 4K lick of paint and slightly better textures here and there, that is in my opinion, an absolute waste of 60 flops. They should have launched out of the gate as a new start to the generation and allow, for sure, OG Xbox One, Xbox One S, allow those games to run on the Xbox One X, but they should have not allowed Xbox One X games to run on the Xbox One. That way, we could see the real difference in power. We could see where that extra $100 is going. At this moment, it's only going to those who really benefit from having a 4K TV. And in terms of IDC, talking about the PS4 Pro, in those terms as a gimmick, I fail to see where they can come at that angle in that it's a gimmick, because it's largely doing exactly what Xbox One X is doing, or Xbox One X is doing largely what the PS4 Pro is doing. They're both attempting to push the 4K narrative. They're both doing it in their own distinctive ways, some using checkerboard, some using dynamic, and some using native resolution, 4K resolution. So if the PS4 Pro is a gimmick, then surely the Xbox One X is a gimmick. Having that extra power or not really makes no difference. They're both aiming and striving for producing the same experiences for 4K HDR owners. And I'm certainly keen to hear your take on this, because that unfortunately brings us to the end of another video. But let's continue the discussion. Share your thoughts on all of today's news stories in the video comments. And for more PS4, Switch and Xbox One news, subscribe to Foxy Games UK. If you found any of the information in this video at all useful, hit the like button and help us reach more like-minded gamers simply by sharing this video. You can also help the Foxy Games UK channel grow via Patreon. We offer just a tier $1 pledge, and you can find a link in the description. Thanks for all and any support. And there we have it. Until next time, always remember, play games, not corporations. Thanks for watching, everybody.